Sweet. Yeah, I'm ready when you are.
Hello, ladies and gents. Welcome to a new episode of Psicoactivo. I want to welcome Matt Laslo from Ascapol, who's been killing it lately. Just fresh out of the oven. You got something really uh, very interesting, I think, with many nuances that I want to talk to you about.
If the Secret Service is listening, he didn't mean that literally. Not literally, y'all.
How's it going,
Good,
man?
good to be back, brother.
Yeah, man. You're the first, since I started doing this in English, you're the first second time guest I have. So
Nice.
thank you,
Honored.
dude. All right. So you just released, I want to get into the meat of it because there's a
Yeah.
lot to go through. You just released an exclusive from Senator Mark Kelly, who's the former astronaut, right? He
He
used to be an
is. He
astronaut.
is.
Yeah.
And his brother,
And
I think, still is.
yeah, they're twins, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I noticed you have an exclusive last year from Senator Kelly too, where you say he
I know.
mocks.
And I forgot to include that in the post, but que
Yeah.
sera, sera.
Yeah, and he was dismissive about it, right? When you asked him about the topic.
Oh, yeah. And he still is. Like today, or I guess earlier this week, he questioned the chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff about um incursions or whatever that they've had, I guess, at the Luke Air Force Base in Arizona, which he represents. And I guess it used to be the Barry Goldwater base, but now it's like the Barry Goldwater Airfield or whatever, and or the space. And he was asking the chair of the Joint Chiefs about, as he put it, drones, drones overhead, drones overhead. So if you listen in our conversation, you can hear me like thinking through my questions because I knew I had to avoid the whole UAP topic just to get him to seriously focus on these incursions. But in it, I asked like, hey, have you ever seen these? No, you know, and so
You
it's
had to
like, wait,
find.
so how do you know that they're drones if you've never seen them?
And
And
those
that's
questions were
where,
great, man. It
and it
was
was just
right
saying
to the
that
meat. Yeah, staying engaged. That was great. I
no,
wanted
and
to
then
ask
like,
you.
yeah,
I wanted to ask you something in between, like real quick, because I
cool,
like
cool.
that style. What you do is there are many ways to find out the truth in journalism, right? One is to make like an outside analysis of everything that's happening. Another one is getting the questions from the people straight to the source, which is what you do. It's very unique.
Yep.
And I think that I just want to point out that there's sometimes when other people who talk about the topic, both online and I don't know, mostly online, they try to get in beefs with you without understanding what you do really. And I
No,
love watching you respond to them because it gets really funny sometimes.
dude, I've got like at askapol.com, we got no dog in any fight, but we got all the fight in all of our dogs, which
Yeah.
the US Senate is finding out. Because like even a couple weeks back, the chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee, Mark Warner from Virginia, he was kind of like laughing and dismissive, just focused on, and I hate this trope, but like little green men. And I'm like, no, 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 no. For folks who are eternal skeptics, like
Yeah.
Mark Kelly, it seems, like Warner, um, I'm not trying to ask them about UFOs, the traditional. I'm like, no, no, no. Let's just talk about the incursions over US airspace. We don't
Yeah.
got to say what it is. And Kelly's like, oh, it's drones, it's drones. Wait, wait, wait. Senator Gillibrand told us when she was out in Nevada with the Air Force and with Lockheed Martin and Northrop Grumman, what did she tell us? At askapol.com, ask a politician. Gillibrand said that there's a persistent problem of the invasion and this like persistent hovering over US military sites and nuclear sites. They don't know what these things are. Because what
Yeah.
she's fighting for in this year's NDAA, or National Defense Authorization Act, which is where that Schumer UAP amendment was last year, what she's fighting for is more sensors. Well, why do they need sensors? Because they don't know what the heck is flying above US airspace. And here, Senator Kelly's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure a lot of them are hobbyists, consumer drones. Well, my former intern and former Hopkins student, because I also teach a little on the side, this great guy, Andre, he was transcribing the Mark Kelly one for me, and he sends me this long text, and he's like, hey, I've got a commercial drone, and I've tested it here in Washington, D.C. I've tested flying it in, restricted airspace. He goes, it won't even turn on. He can't even get it to fly up, because he's a good journalist and he pushed the envelope and to the point of breaking, so he tried it and he couldn't do it. So now it's like, all right, so maybe it's not the hobbyist, but then Senator Kelly's like, well, I'm pretty sure this is foreign adversaries. Can we stop the fucking presses? Like,
Yeah.
we are the biggest nuclear armed nation in the world. We're the assholes who actually use them against our friends now in Japan, who I was in the House chamber today when the Prime Minister of Japan addressed the joint address to Congress. And so like, we are a target for other nations' nukes. And guess what? One nuke on one drone, that's catastrophic. So like, the fact that you guys say, yeah, we're pretty sure it's foreign adversaries. Well, why the fuck did you all leave Washington 3:00 today on a Thursday? Y'all got some work to do. Because if you don't know what's flying in US airspace, then get the fuck out of here. Like,
And
we spend about $1 trillion a year on our military budget. Like, that alone is insane. Like, there's no need for that much spending on defense. And yet, even with all that astronomical spending, which goes into all these toys for the military industrial complex and all these contractors, they got all these fancy toys, but they don't know what the fuck is flying over our heads. Like, get out of here. Like, I've had enough of these kids. Like, oh, what do? What do we know?
they just
From
bicker, trying to hide
no,
this
they
thing.
just fundraise. They just care about their own
That's true.
self-preservation.
Follow
Like,
the
that's
money.
what they
That's
do.
True. That's
No,
true.
and we had back in 2010 when Obama was president, there was this great New Yorker article by Packer, I believe, and what he got in that piece, it was called The Empty Chamber, about how, the Senate's broken. And what did he have in that piece? He got two senators, Chris Dodd from Connecticut and Lamar Alexander from Tennessee. Now they're both retired, but he got both of them to admit that 75% of their job as a US senator, 75% of their job is fundraising. So that was what? Almost 15
Public
years ago. That was
relations.
2010. Things have only gotten worse, and they're only raising more and more money now. And it's like, no, you are failing your most basic duty because you don't know what's flying over our heads. And sure, if you're 1,000% convinced it's not UFOs, but that it's US adversaries, well, then fucking deal with that. Deal with that yesterday.
Oh man. And it's getting
And
scarier by the minute, which
but
is
then I'm also equally pissed at the US media, my colleagues. Like, I'm doing this at Askapol as a one-man band. I've got former interns and current interns who we're paying. They're helping us. But right now it's basically just me asking the questions. And like, what if I had a budget? What if I had a researcher? Oh, what if I had other reporters on the ground, like the investigative units at some of these big organizations? Like, they're Pulitzer winning for a reason. Like, they have resources, they've got great reporters who are tenacious. But what have they done? They drank the fucking Kool-Aid. And they're like, oh, we believe what the Pentagon's telling us. No, 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 no. Like they have no curiosity. And because they've allowed it to become this debate over ET, wait, we don't need to have that debate over ET. You know, it seems like
But
from
wait, I
at
want to
least
ask
the
you.
House UAP, but at least the House UAP
Yeah.
caucus, they don't have clearances. So they haven't even seen what's in back of the veil. So I'm like, let's just start with a conversation about what's flying overhead. And once we really put their feet to the fire on that, because, the media, they chased the balloon story last year and then they dropped it after like a couple weeks.
Do you think
But
it is
that's,
stigma, or do you think it's being done on purpose? This ignoring the topic by the media outlets. What does your gut tell you?
I think, well, and so it's interesting. And like before I came on, I tweeted some pressure at my colleagues in the media, and I'm
I
gonna do
haven't
a
seen
little
that one.
more.
Dude,
Yeah, because
you've been like this all fucking day, bro.
I'm just gonna hold the mirror up to them because
Yeah.
so we did see some movement. So like David Grush hearing, yeah, every reporter and their mom, or every news outlet and their mom was there. That was big, headline grabbing. But then there was a follow-up at the end of last year where UAP caucus members um, finally got access to a skiff. And so for that, the first classified briefing in the skiff with UAP caucus, I think there's just like 6 or 8 members in there. And outside of it was just me from askapol.com and then our
John.
friends at News Nation.
Yeah,
And,
John, right?
it's their TV crew. So there's like 4 of them. But then I was like, oh, wait, you're all the same outlet. So like that was
Okay.
it. Well, then you had the Intel community stonewall, the UAP caucus, everyone came out of there saying this was useless, dot, dot, dot. And so then those members wisely did a press conference, I believe last November, where they were like, hey, Pentagon and the Intel community, they're stonewalling us. You saw a lot of reporters come to that presser. Well, then when they had their second skiff briefing at the start of this year in January, Tim Burchett tells us there was about 16 members inside. So instead of just like 6 members, the stonewalling didn't work and you got more curiosity. So more members were there. But then you also had outside of it, us at Askapol, then News Nation, but then also CNN was there, Fox was there, Axios, my friend from the Hill, I believe maybe the Post, and so we're kind of, and all these folks follow me on Twitter and all that, or X, and they're, again, that's why I'm like not, and I try very much to avoid, falling into any camp. For one, I'm just a skeptic by nature. I'm skeptical of everything, and I just got a million questions. But with this, yeah. The pressure is now on. Because now what? Just this year alone, I've got 5 senior senators telling me that, yeah, there are persistent incursions of US airspace. And I think with my colleagues in the media, they come out when it's that sexy, UFO, traditional sense of the word, and ET when it's that question. Well, there's deeper, or pardon me, there's more, not pressing, but like literally right now, if our US Senate is convinced that this is foreign adversaries, and remember last year, I interviewed all 100 US senators about this. So yeah, they all know about David Grush because of me. So they, yeah, while the UAP community, UFO community, is working just on another level than this Congress. I'm kind of like helping this Congress get their training wheels on, but I have to like meet them where they're at. And that's where I'm like, all right, So all of you senior members of the Intel Committee in the Senate, senior members of Armed Services, including its chair, Jack Reed of Rhode Island, what did he say? He said, we've had multiple incursions in U.S. airspace since last May.
And reports have
Multiple.
been increasing this
And
year.
persistent.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's like, with them, yeah, there's this, they laugh off the whole subject of, something coming, something that's extraterrestrial. Cool. Laugh all you want. But let's talk about this object flying over Langley. Let's talk about this one flying over the Luke Air Force Base in Arizona. Oh, Gillibrand says there's also them persistently flying over the base in Nevada. Oh, they're hovering over the ones in Montana, these nuclear
Everywhere.
sites. Yeah. So it's like, no. I'll use the same lingo as you, and we can talk about or around drones, as Senator Kelly wanted to do. But again, I kept pressing him. Have you seen it? Did you see it with your eyes? Oh, we haven't dropped this yet, but I asked Michigan Senator Gary Peters today, hey, have you seen pictures of what the Air Force shot down, one of those objects over Michigan? And he's like, no, I don't think I have. It's like, no. You guys are failing at your most basic duty, which is to be curious, but like congressionally curious. You're a representative of the people, or pardon me, you're supposed to be a representative of the people,
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you guys, the fact that they just seem fine with foreign adversaries overhead, like, fuck that shit. Literally.
Yeah, dude.
Because one thing Kelly says is he's like, oh, drones, we see this being used in Ukraine. Yeah, in a fucking war zone. So are you saying that those things that are flying over the battlefield, that's what's flying overhead and over our nuclear sites? So like, why are you calm? Why are you fundraising so much? Why aren't you getting answers?
I'm sure you know about the history of this since the 70s. Have you looked into this? Maelstrom and all that. And I find it fascinating that over the last 2 weeks, more and more people have been talking about this online, and people that are important, such as yourself, who are asking the questions.
Who's important?
Ross Colhart, the people that are right there.
Yeah.
And I find it quite alarming that the government, especially the White House, is not responding to any of it, like at all, and they dismiss it during the press briefings. Why do you think that's happening?
Well, so this is where there's the mystery. And, what? I've been covering Congress now 18 years. I know Congress, and that's where I'm sourced, and through Askapol, I've now got sources in the intel community, in the Pentagon, in congressional offices, et cetera. Even the contracting community, I can see them. Oh, like when you guys follow me on askapol.com, I see your Northrop Grumman email. Cool, keep watching what we're doing. But so that's where, with Congress, what an example would be the top Democrat on the House Intel Committee, Jim Himes from Connecticut. When they had that first UFO hearing in 50 years, the one led by Andre Carson, Adam Schiff was there. That was back in 2022, I believe. So that one, the year before Grush testified last year. So yeah, it's 2022. In that one, Jim Himes, whoever those people were from the Pentagon who testified, he pushed them, and they said, no, there's no UFO program, nothing hidden from you all. Since then, what does Jim Himes do? He goes, yeah, there's no questions here. They answered my question and they said no. Wait. You believe what the government tells you, like, I started a bookshelf, you know, I'm a professor on the side. I started a little library in the Senate Radio TV gallery. So all these book titles just like stare all the anchors from like what NBC, Fox, CBS, NBC. They stares them in the face whenever they walk past. One of the first titles there is "All Governments Lie." You know, that's what we in the press corps need to remember, but it's especially what these representatives have to remember. And in today's hyper-partisan BS world, you'll find like less curiosity right now from Democrats because there's a Democrat in the White House. Fuck that shit. Our founders explicitly rejected a two-party system, and no matter the system that came with, you know, different parties or whatever, they wanted Congress to be 1000% representative of their people, which is why we have checks and balances, because Congress is supposed to go to war with the White House, especially when it's your own party. Because what? Who can have Biden's ear the most? Who's Biden going to listen to? Well, probably the Democratic chair of the Intel Committee, Mark Warner. They served together and stuff. And so, like, this, like, stupid, lazy partisanship where, and again, that lack of curiosity and just that gullibility. Like, no. Just because a bureaucrat or even hell, you know, these people are in the military, like, fuck, you know, they're willing to give their lives for our nation. Like, yeah, you guys are fucking baller. That doesn't mean you can't fucking lie, you know? And so, yeah, this Congress, from
Do you
Professor
remember?
Laslo, they get F's,
Do you
all
remember
F's.
Operation Mockingbird?
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, do you think it could be possible that when they got caught doing that, they didn't close the program, they just renamed it and just kept it going in secret? Do you think that that could be possible?
Man, anything is possible. Like, and especially because of that lack of congressional curiosity. And actually, one of the, like, Congress just got back. They gave themselves a 2-week long spring break. Not sure how many of their titties were out or how many were doing keg stands, but you know, they gave themselves this 2-week break. And right before that, again, I was frustrated with Mark Warner because he literally laughed in my face on this issue. And I'm just like, no. So then I was like, all right, and really started pressing people on the whole idea that former President Eisenhower gave us, the military industrial complex. And so I've been really pressing folks on, you know, for one, just asking, like, all right, was the prophet Eisenhower correct? Because we got this huge military, and like, where does the military stop and the contracting world begin? And where does the flip side of that, where does one end? And so that's where I'm really curious, along with in the House side, you know, members of the UAP caucus, that's really what they're fishing out. And, you know, whether one of these SAPs or special access programs that, you know, the whistleblower David Grush warned about, like, are they hidden? Because, you know, those officials testifying in front of Jim Himes, they can be 1000% honest when they say, no, sir, you know, the Pentagon has none of these programs. Well, Pentagon might not have any of these programs, but are they tucked inside of, you know, Northrop Grumman, Lockheed, Sikorsky, all these? And so that's where, yeah, like, at least, like, the only saving grace for this Congress is the UAP caucus and the folks in the House who are, you know, engaged on this issue and curious and keeping the pressure up. You know, we just broke the news last night that the UAP caucus next week is going to be getting a briefing, a classified briefing in the skiff with
I wanted to ask you about
with
that.
AARO, with
Thank you for
AARO.
bringing it up.
But here's the thing, they don't even know. So like on the Senate side, you got all these people with all this power and they got clearances, top secret. So like, I don't know what they know. And again, like this is all classified stuff. So there's always going to be stuff that they can't tell me, but I'm on Signal, I'm on WhatsApp, I'm on Proton Mail. If you have anything you want to get me, send it to me. I will go to my grave. I don't know who you are, but that's how we work at Askapol. You send me the info, boom, I go and ask
Protect
the
the
politicians.
sources at all costs.
Oh, amen. Like I'm going to my grave with so many secrets. And not even any fun ones that I know of or that I can readily recall.
Yet.
But so the UAP Caucus, they're meeting with AARO. Again, these are mostly first-term lawmakers, some are second term, but like none of them. Well, Nancy Mace, she's on the Armed Services Committee, so she's got a certain level of access to classified stuff that others don't. Well, they don't even know if they're going to get the interim director of AARO, Timothy Phillips. I'm like, y'all are in Congress, and like, you heard of this thing called the frickin' U.S. Constitution? Which, yeah, mine's got my initials on it. Thanks, Mama Laslo. You know, like this gives you the supremacy over these fuckers. Like, who cares all the shiny jewelry and stuff that they got hanging from their lapels? You're a member of Congress. Like, and they are being dogged and tenacious. They just don't have the power built in like these senior senators do. But man, at least they're asking and keeping the pressure up because these senators are either, yeah, they just seem to be ostriches. And again, that's what I'm curious with Senator Warner. Because remember, he's Gang of Eight. Same with Marco Rubio and Himes. That's Gang of Eight, which is, you know, the majority and minority leader in the Senate, and then the Speaker of the House and minority leader over there. So those four, then you got the heads of the intelligence committees, and then the minority staff or minority ranking members. So like those four, so that's includes Warner, Rubio, and Himes and Mike Turner over on the House side. Like there could be things that those eight know that other members of the Intel committee don't know, and that they're not even allowed.
Any of them?
Well, and it could be, it would, some stuff, it would be illegal for Senator Warner to even talk about with, say, Senator Mark Kelly, you know, because they get the secrets. And so that's where I'm always having to, like, you know, play fancy and like always come at questions from a different angle. Because what? Gillibrand, when she got back from her trip to Nevada, where she was with Air Force, Lockheed, and Northrop, I initially asked her, like, hey, how'd it go? And she was like, I can't talk about it. It's classified. Well, then I actually happened to run into her like 3 minutes later during that same Senate vote series. And we started chatting initially with my mic off. And she was talking about the UAP incursions. And I was like, wait. And then I was like, oh, I fucked up. I asked the question wrong. So on the first time around, I gave her an out where she was just like, no, that was all classified. Can't talk about it. And I'm like, all right, you know, that makes sense. But then I'm like, no. And that's where I constantly have to be like changing my language to adapt to them. And the box that they're put in, because again, classified material, they literally sign a document, like they can be tossed in jail if they divulge classified info. And rightfully so, which is why they should declassify a lot of this stuff. But
Yeah.
that's a conversation for another day, I suppose.
Yeah, actually, I recently spoke to a YouTuber called Professor Simon Holland. I don't know if you saw it, but he spoke to me about this Rendlesham Forest case, and he said some stuff that made got some cages rattled, because
Oh
apparently
yeah.
this is technology from the U.S. It wasn't a UFO per se, and it's highly classified, and it's really, I don't know, the reaction surprised me quite a bit, and I think those Gang of Eight members, they know some shit like
Did
that, you
someone
know.
did someone ask you to take it down or something?
No, they asked me to talk to the professor. Uh, yeah, but it's not anybody from the government or anything like that.
You didn't have black helicopters land on your
Nah,
roof?
nah.
Man, 'cause that'd be fun.
No, I don't like that shit. You haven't gotten that
What's that?
threats or something, or like, other than
Wait,
the Instagram comments that you told me about late, people attack and everything. But have you been ever been like um intimidated in any way?
I
No.
mean, January 6th was not a fun day. January
Yeah,
6th,
yeah.
2021, because my office was stormed. This
Oh yeah.
on the start of January 6th, this was the doorstop for the Senate Radio TV gallery. End of that day, it was in my pocket as a shank. Because I was like, if I'm going out, I'm taking at least one of these guys with me. Because yeah, people
uh,
in that
the reason
crowd
I
who
asked
stormed the
though,
Capitol, like they knew me and
yeah,
they did not like me. And so that was unsettling, especially because I'm like, wait,
of
the
course.
guys with all the guns, like they're overrun. The fuck I'm gonna do? I had what, a CNN wrench in one pocket and my doorstop in the other one.
Yeah, the reason I ask you is because obviously you've been increasingly getting like some of the biggest exclusives on the topic, and a lot of
What
this,
we do.
I'm sure it's rattling some cages. So that's the reason I ask you specifically about this topic. But
That that is why I have a note to get insurance for Askapole.
yeah,
Well,
that's
just
a great
because,
idea.
like, well, and with that, I'm thinking like, we got the First Amendment here in the US, which I got tatted on my arm. That's my quill that wrote the First Amendment. Why I
Nice.
always got my sleeve rolled up, so I'm flashing my First Amendment in lawmakers' faces every day. Well, so they like, you're rarely going to win a libel case or whatever here in the US. I mean, we did see Gawker go down from that Hulk Hogan case, which, if you haven't watched it, there's a great Netflix documentary on that, which is like terrifying and unsettling, kind of seeing powerful interests be able to actually take out a publication, uh, no matter the merits or whatever, fuck Gawker, except, damn, you know? And so that's where I'm not worried about certain things, but I'm like, oh, these people got money. They can fucking sue my ass to death where, I
Yeah.
don't have the resources to even like get a lawyer for the first one. And hopefully, a law firm would cover me pro bono, but I can't bank on that. So gotta shell out more money from my pocket into insurance.
How do you
Just
navigate? How do you navigate the sources? Because uh, I don't know. Sometimes it's easy to fall into supposed source who maybe it's a veteran or something like that. And well, you know the story of um, Linda Moulton Howe, how she was shown false information. And I wonder always about this, especially with people who are closest to the source, how do you navigate that in order to not get burned?
well, and that's actually one thing that we're kind of like exploding at askapole.com because I'm fine asking lawmakers rumors. Like, I don't want to. And like, yeah, some questions that have come in, I'm just like, no. You know, that not verified, This is
Yeah.
way out there in left field. So I have to use judgment a little bit, but I'm fine. Like the whole idea of ask a poll, ask a politician is really bringing the community in. And so that's why we put the raw interviews up. You all get to hear me ask your questions to your lawmakers. And then, you get to hear their responses, their non-responses. And I think sometimes, especially because this community, the UAP community, is what I call an unnewsed community, you know, like cannabis, like with crypto, even migration and immigration, you know, news outlets, yeah, when they cover immigration or migration, they do it, as a trope, for the most part. Um, and so that's where I really just want to like take all those people who are passionate about what they're passionate about and then bring them along with me to the Capitol and be like, hey, yeah, you're still neglected by the government and you're neglected by the big corporate media, but hey, your voice fucking matters. It matters to ask a poll, and please go out and vote. Like your voice matters. And so, and especially keep the pressure up on your politicians. And so, especially because we're not even a year old yet, we I know that a lot of people in this community have had questions for decades that they've never even gotten to like bounce off anyone, or gotten anyone to even take them seriously. And so that's where I'm like what, a few weeks back, someone very close to members on the UAP Caucus, yeah, we put out a story on bodies. So what did I do? Someone
Someone. Let's just leave
very
it at that.
close. Oh yeah, someone very close to these members. So like when I was told it, and like I didn't go searching for this information. This yeah, I can say this. This lawmaker just whispered it in my ear, and I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna go. Like that changed the trajectory of my day. So when I saw Congresswoman Luna, co-chair of the UAP caucus, I kind of waited for, she was coming down from the House floor on the steps outside the Capitol. There was like two other reporters. I let them get their questions in because I'm like a little bit red in the cheeks, like, oh shit, like I'm gonna ask her about recovered bodies or her seeing bodies in this classified briefing. I ask her, expecting her to be like, what the fuck you talking about, son? And
Yeah.
that was not her response. Her response was big smile, her turning around as she's getting into her car and being like, I'm not allowed to talk about classified briefings. And I'm like, whoa. Then, so we have that out there. Then Matt Gaetz, because what I was told by this source was that Matt Gaetz and her were in, and Miss Luna, that they were in this briefing where they were shown videos where there was bodies. So Gates's people, and at first when his people reached out to me the next day, like 12 hours later, my heart sank and I was like, oh shit. Like they're gonna tell me we gotta do a correction, like this is insane, like take it down. But no, what did Gaetz and his people do? Congressman Gaetz and his people just confirmed that they had the meeting, didn't say Laslo's full of shit. Like, why are you making up this shit about this classified briefing we got from military folks? And so then a lot of people in the community were rightfully very skeptical because, again, Luna doesn't have, she's former Air Force, but she doesn't have a top security clearance. Gaetz, he's on the Armed Services Committee. So, like Mace, he's got a little bit, there's like a built-in level of security clearance that him and the other members have. So then I'm like still very skeptical, but everyone can listen to my question, listen to the response. Like my thing with what we're doing at Ask a Poll is like, I'd caution everyone, like, don't take any of these lawmakers as like 100% truth teller. Like I say, my job is to interview 535 liars for a living. Like they are politicians. And like, even if they're not overtly lying, their whole job is to like massage the truth a little bit, to like can appeal to this group and then go and talk to this group and kind of say the opposite thing, but wink, wink, nod, nod. Like Trump's doing with abortion now. I'm like, bro, how many abortions have you paid for your mistresses and porn stars or whatever? But oh, now you're gonna oppose it? Like, shut the fuck up, dude. So you can like remember, politicians, they speak out of every side of their mouths, and then when they are out of a side to speak out of, they create a new hole to speak out of. And so that's where, well, then I go and I ask a senator on the Intel committee, Martin Heinrich, like, hey, any bodies? Like, have you seen bodies? He just looks at me like, what? And I go, well, hey, I asked that same question to Luna and Gates. And he was just like, yeah, I can't talk about classified briefings. So I can't tell you. But he's like, it's pretty safe to assume that I haven't been shown anything like that. And so that's where he was able to like debunk that a little bit. Again, I'm a skeptic. When I hear that, and then knowing that Gates and Luna didn't like pour cold water on it, well, then I'm like, all right, what were they shown? And this is the era of AI and deepfakes. Like, what were you shown? And so I think that's where this whole thing, like, I'm not necessarily looking for the truth or whatever. I'm looking for answers. And like in each interview, I might not be asking the right questions, And so that's where, especially like interviewing all 100 US senators last year, that's kind of like this big tapestry or quilt. Like there's no real, if anything, that's a barometer for how the US Senate feels about the issue. And guess what? They don't give a shit about it, which is helpful to know. But yeah, I don't interview politicians like looking for the gospel or the truth.
Do you sense a level of desperation in any of the Congress people, regardless of their position on this topic? Because I don't know if
desperation over
not getting the info they want, like
oh fuck yeah,
getting fed up. What's
House
the energy?
UAP Caucus.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and that's where I need to write this down so it's a little more clear. But I basically feel like there's kind of 3 different investigations going on the Hill, and like Senator Mark Warner, chair of the Intel committee, he told us at ASCAPOL last year, point blank, there is no UFO investigation going on. There's no David Grush investigation going on there. Well, that was very good to hear, very abrupt for many in the community, but it's good to know that. Now, when I, talk to Warner, I know, all right, and like he forgets it. Like, hey, bro, I got a memory. So cool. You're not doing a UFO investigation. So yeah, I'm not asking you about that. But I'm asking you about these unknown objects that are flying over nuclear facilities. Call them what you want. But I want to talk about that, So then with the UAP caucus, yeah, those folks are, some of them are, Congresswoman Luna told us at askapol.com, she said the reason she wanted, or one of the, she wanted to use last year's David Grush hearing, the one on last July. She wanted that David Grush hearing to really show the American public what she already knew. She wanted that to convince the public, like, hey, there are recovered craft. These programs exist. Well, we just had Congressman Burleson on, who's an ally with Luna on this issue. We just had him on AskAPol. We do a live listening session for our subscribers on Discord. like once a month or once every 2 months, whenever I can
I
get
saw it.
lawmakers
It
to
was
sit
great,
down with
man.
my ass.
That
Well,
was
there
great.
we had Burleson actually admit, like, hey, he's pretty skeptical about this stuff, but kind of in the, you know, prove it, show me. And like everything the government's doing is making all these House members have more questions, be more curious, and think like, oh, yeah, they're totally hiding shit. Like, to me is the funniest thing when NASA, you know, so NASA, what do they do? And this, I'm a comms professor, political comms, so I like study this from all those angles, but I'm like, this is the biggest comms flop ever. You got Bill Nelson and them at NASA administrator, come out and say, all right, we've heard the public. There's concern about UAPs. So we're going to start a new UAP division. But we're going to keep the director of it secret. Like, what the fuck? Like, do you know the community you're dealing with? Like,
Yeah.
you're going to keep them secret? For one, no, this community's
It's
going
gonna
to
last a
research it.
week,
They're,
tops, dude.
yeah. But then two, like, you are just giving them reason to be more skeptical by trying
more
to hide it and
inquisitive.
cloak it. Yeah. And
Yeah.
like, and that's where you see within kind of those three circles in this Congress, the eternal skeptics, the believers, and then, those kind of searching, there is something that unites them all, or should, which is intrusion of US airspace. So sometimes I just take it down to the lowest common denominator and kind of have to remind them, like, that's why it was good for Burleson. And it was nice to hear, like, he's not searching for what he knows. He's literally searching for answers. And every day, with their stalling and stonewalling, he's getting more and more questions that are more and more precise, that are more targeted. And so I'm intrigued on how the government, and especially AARO, how they evolve in the next year or two. Because remember, AARO's only been around 2 years, and they kind of fumbled right out of the fucking gates because what? It's created. Well, Rubio kind of tells us at Askapol that he was kind of miffed at Fitzpatrick once Fitzpatrick left AARO, because he's like, wait, I was pressing him on something, and he's like, wait, this is why we created AARO, kind of saying like, I'm really busy, like all my other Senate colleagues were really busy, and like, we saw that this was a problem. They felt the public pressure, and they're like a little curious, like, yeah, what is all this stuff flying above? So what did the Senate do and Congress? They created AARO to kind of outsource, not necessarily in the lazy way, but a little bit. They kind of wanted to wash their hands of it and just like say, hey, we're going to set up this agency to do the thinking for us. That means they're also like intrinsically in that is they need AARO to be the trusted repository for service members, pilots, whoever, to come and say, hey, like, this is what's happening. This is what I saw. But the way Kirkpatrick fucked up and fumbled AARO, what? No one in the services trust AARO. So at the end of last year, before Kirkpatrick retired and started writing all these op-eds, like, man, go fuck yourself. Like, you had all this power and you did nothing with it. If anything, you squandered what you had. You hurt the cause, because literally at the end of last year, Senator Gillibrand told me she went and had a one-on-one with Kirkpatrick, pushing him on, hey, whistleblowers do not feel comfortable with your group, which was set up to gain their trust. Well, Senator Rounds, he went separately And Rounds and Gillibrand, they're two of only 6 senators who are on both the Intelligence Committee and the Armed Services Committee. So like, they know more than most. So like the two of them went separately. Well, then Warner tells me him and Rubio, so the chair and the vice chair of Senate Intel, they went quietly, but they had a private meeting with Kirkpatrick, pressing him and pressuring him because he was failing. So like in all of Kirkpatrick's op-eds, he doesn't talk about how he's a utter fucking failure. Kirkpatrick, you failed. Like the Senate Intelligence Committee, they had to go and wipe your ass. Like these senators had to leave the Hill to go and, have a like after school meeting because kids were misbehaving. Like you were the director of this very important agency. We can tell it's not important to you. Everyone knows that now. This was just about you. But so like, I don't care what that kid has to say. Like, anyway, that's an aside.
So I wanted to ask you a couple more questions before we leave.
You should ask me what I really think about Kirkpatrick.
One has to do with potential new public hearings. What have you heard like over the last few days that you could maybe share?
This is the most beautiful thing. This community, you guys are lapping this Congress because I have asked that and re-asked that and re-asked that. And, in their defense, in Congress's defense, which I don't defend those assholes much. But like what? This week, so Congress, again, they got back from this 2-week recess. Right when they get back, Speaker of the House, this newly minted one, Speaker Mike Johnson, he's got a threat hanging over his head from MTG or Marjorie Taylor Greene, threatening to pull that motion to vacate, which is how, Speaker McCarthy was ousted last fall. And so they come back from this 2-week recess. They've got that hanging over their heads. Johnson, he's got, the end of his career hanging over his head, which really does suck all the air out of the House, because any move he makes can be the end of him. And then remember, this is where the UAP caucus is interesting, because 3 members of the UAP caucus were a part of the 8. And remember, it only took 8 House members to oust former Speaker McCarthy. Well, 3 of those 8 are UAP caucus members. Technically, Matt Gaetz isn't a member of the UAP caucus, but that's what he says about the Freedom Caucus, the far-right fiscal group. He's a member of it. He just doesn't want the card,
Yeah.
Because and so, yeah, he's a part of the UAP caucus. He's just not a member of the caucus, is, I guess, the best way to put it. And so and then, so you have the potential for another knockdown, drag out speaker fight. This is also in the midst of the 2024 election, which is why Congress took 2 weeks off, because
that's another one
every
of my
House.
Questions. Thank you.
Yeah. And like most House members, or at least not most, but many House members are running for their lives. A third of the Senate is running for their lives. And so like, that's always top of everyone's minds. But then you also, what we have today, or was it yesterday? What day is it? The FISA, or the warrantless wiretapping bill, that went down and was defeated in the House. That thing still has to be reauthorized.
I saw you posted about that.
And that's got to be reauthorized by the 19th, or that whole program expires. And like, that's that post 9/11, when the Twin Towers fell, that's that secret program that many civil liberties folks say like invaded US privacy, which is part of what this new breed of Republicans in the House ran on. So like their promise to their voters was, hey, we're going to change this. That aligns them with many of these progressive Democrats who are like, have always hated that program. And so the defeat of that, like that really sucked a ton of the air out of this town, because now they're fighting over that. And like, that one's fucking huge, especially because now the FBI has been using, or like when they don't have a warrant, they've been able to like go to third parties who were, data brokers and buy people's private tracking data, the Find My iPhone thing, buy that, and then, oh, FBI can now track you because, not because they had a warrant, not because they had a cause, but just because they were able to pay someone over here, and then the TikTok bill, House passed that, and, Senate is sitting there, they might ban all of TikTok or force the divestment of TikTok. Why? Because they say that's a national security issue where China is like warping the minds of Americans, which I say, hey, we don't even have basic privacy law for anything on the internet. Like Silicon Valley.
Have you visited Twitter?
Hell no, they wouldn't let me near that place. I did. A guy was a professor buddy who I was supposed to write a book with. I think still on some more free time, but he actually worked at Facebook, then worked at Twitter. So he's my closest connection to them. But if Silicon Valley ever asks, no, I don't know him. But yeah, and so all that to say, like
next year.
Well, this Congress, no, we're hearing, because the UAP caucus huffed and puffed and like ain't going nowhere. You are, what do we have at Askapol? We published because remember, UAP caucus, they're asking, instead of the select UAP committee, they started asking for a UAP subcommittee underneath oversight. And so remember when David Grush testified in front of oversight, that was technically in front of the like defense or something subcommittee. I'm looking it up right now as I talk. But so the chair of that subcommittee is this guy, Glenn Grothman from Wisconsin. So yeah, here's the full title. He's chair of the National Security, the Border, and Foreign Affairs Subcommittee. Like, oh, not too much on his plate. Well, so when we had our exclusive with him right before the recess, I was asking him about like, hey, what do you think about starting a UAP subcommittee? And he was basically like, nope, that's not going to be needed. And what he said is, because we're going to have another hearing. And so,
oh yeah,
it kind of feels like in their minds, Republican Party leaders' minds, because Burchett, the other co-chair of the UAP caucus, when Speaker Johnson was down in his district, holding a fundraiser for him, because again, 2024 election, they got like, when Speaker Johnson was just going district to district in Tennessee, just like fundraiser for all these Republicans down there. And so each member, it feels like, just got like a little bit of time with him. Burchett used that one-on-one time with him to bring up and talk about UAPs. And he said Johnson was receptive and all that. And so it's interesting. It feels like it's now at the leadership level, they get it. And it kind of feels like those top leaders, the speaker, and then the chair of that committee, James Comer, it feels like they're kind of, my gut tells me they're kind of talking with Grothman, who, he's a subcommittee chair. So he's leadership, but he's not leadership. And so it feels like they're like, all right, how are we going to placate this group? Let's give them another hearing, And so they're saying they're going to do another hearing. No date on it yet, but my gut tells me once they do that one, they won't necessarily be able to stop again, because outside that first skip briefing, just 6 lawmakers and not much media. Well, outside of whatever the intel community did, it blew up in their faces, because what do you have at the second skip briefing? 16 lawmakers, according to Burchett, and half dozen, maybe 10 or so reporters. Well, now I'm curious if we're going to see more and more. And so the questions aren't going away at all, even though they'd like him to. And because, again, Speaker Johnson's got that threat of the motion to vacate hanging over his head. Like, what did he do today? Like, that threat came from Marjorie Taylor Greene or MTG. So what did Johnson do today? After he had a private meeting with her yesterday, which I broke that news in my other day job. Now Johnson, because he's, fighting for his life, he's like, all right, we're going to give her a leadership post. He's like, make one up for her. So like, because we also saw all these Republican retirements. So right now, Speaker Johnson, he can only afford to lose one Republican vote. One Republican vote. Otherwise, boom, his whole agenda falls apart. So he gave MTG, who he must be fucking cursing, even through his Christianese, like, she's the biggest pain in his ass. And what does he do for the biggest pain in his ass? Gives her a leadership post. And so I'm like, hey, UAP Caucus folks, like, you're never more powerful than you are right now with your asks. But again, a lot of people in the party think it's dumb for MTG to even be threatening to boot Johnson out, because they're like, yeah, we all want to boot him out too. Well, who the fuck are we going to replace him with? Last time we did it, it took a month to find this asshole.
Yeah, it's
This
only
nice,
gonna make
very
this...
nice asshole.
All right. And you're gonna make sure those questions keep being asked, man. I want to thank you for everything you do, and let you know that I know independent journalism lives on with places like Askapol. So thanks, man. It's been great. I hope we can do this again sometime soon, and let's just hope those drones, whatever they are, they start like looking into it, because man, that's scary, especially around the nuclear facilities. It's...
Dude, and like, so what? When I interviewed like all 100 US senators last year, because some people in the UFO community, they get dismissed as like, oh, you drank the Kool-Aid, blah, 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 you're a believer. Well, you also have those utter believers on the other side, where if an alien was giving them a fucking hand job, they'd be like, no, like, they don't exist. My wife dressed up or whatever. And so what do we have? The head of former chair of the Foreign Relations Committee in the Senate, Jim Rich from Idaho. What did he tell us at Ask a Poll? He said, I don't read UFO stories. Okay, Senator. So that's your exact quote. You don't read UFO stories. So does that mean you're not reading any stories about these incursions over military and nuclear bases? Because from what we know and what senators on the Intel Committee and Armed Services Committee tell us is they don't know what the fuck these are. So that's either UFO by the old definition, which still works fine, or it's a UAP by the new definition, which still works decent enough, except it does sow confusion at the Capitol. So it's like you have those hardcore believers, like what Senator Tillis from North Carolina. What he told us was, I'm 100% convinced that there's life outside of Earth. But then he goes, but I'm also 100% convinced that life hasn't visited us here on Earth. And I'm like, where do you get that certainty?
Yeah.
Like there, like literally, I
That's
wouldn't get that
crazy to
term
say, man. That's
right.
crazy to say.
Um,
That's
this is
wild.
separate, but everyone's got to check out this new series on Netflix. What is it? Three
Free body
Body
problem. Yeah.
Problem?
It's
Oh my
amazing.
God. I already finished it and I'm like, no, I need my fix.
Get, get me my three body problem fix.
But like what I loved about that was like, yeah, like the imagination and like hell, these days with the Jim Webb Space Telescope, if anything, what are we learning from that? We're learning from that we knew nothing about the universe. Like whatever our expansive, infinite understanding that we thought we had, that just got blown out of the water. And it's
Yeah.
even more infinite than the infinite,
By
and like,
13 more billion years.
yeah. And so like anyone who's certain, no, because I'd probably agree with Hillis. Yeah, we must be arrogant fucks to think that we're the only life in this universe. Dot. And so I think, yeah, again, this Congress lacks imagination. If I were the professor of this Congress, and I do call them my wayward children, I would require each of them to watch that and give me a 5-page report on it, just because they're thinking too small. And I think we all are, we're all confined by our own thinking. And that's where I love my job because I don't know shit. I ask questions for a living. I don't have answers to the questions I ask for the most part. And actually, these days, even if I do have answers, it doesn't matter because half the nation's gonna be like, no, your shirt is yellow. No, your shirt is purple. Um, so that's where like half what I'm doing these days is just like trying to understand people more. And hopefully people get that from Ask a Poll.
Yeah.
Like at the very least, your takeaway should be, yeah, go out in November and maybe hire a new Congress.
Yeah. Do you plan on doing research or anything outside of Congress people at any point in your career, or because I know you're very busy at Askapol, but you're eventually, I suppose, you're gonna grow and you're gonna get more people who can work with you, and maybe you will have a little more time to do
Dude.
other kind of research.
So
Do you plan, or have you ever
this,
thought about it?
so this, you see that?
Yeah.
Each one of these is a different project.
Yeah,
One's a
that you're doing
novel.
about drugs, well, substances, and everything you do with the regular
No,
politics, not exopolitics.
well, no, yeah, we just dropped our crypto vertical. We call it drugs, but I don't consider most of the stuff
It's
drugs.
substances, right? Yeah, yeah,
It's substances, but
yeah, yeah.
that's too many words, or too many letters.
That's why I corrected myself though.
Well, but that's also where drugs really encapsulates, at least here in the US, our prison industrial complex, where
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
fuck America, we've locked up more people
And
in
made
our
a lot of money.
more of our own neighbors are locked up over stupid shit than any other planet. And we're like, oh, China, you're repressive. Oh, North Korea, you're repressive. No, no, no. We, the American prison system, we allowed an inmate in Fulton County, where President Trump, one of his trials is, an inmate was found eaten by bed bugs, eaten to death. He died
Damn, bro.
from bed bugs. It's fucking disgusting. And that's where Young Thug, where his trial, the YSL gang, that's where their trial is. And I'm like, it's kind of amazing that this hip hop collective, amazing, him and Gunna and their crew and the President of the United States are both being tried. So like stadium filling artists with former President of the United States are both being tried in this system in this county where they allowed a teen, I believe, or early 20s to be a guy with mental health problems. And it's like, oh, he's crying because he cries. He was eaten fucking alive by bed bugs. Like, fuck America.
An
We got a
alarming lack
lot
of
of shit to
humanity.
deal with.
Yeah. It's
We're a
alarming.
nasty nation, even though
Oh man.
I love
So
us. And this nation gives me the freedom to bitch and moan and
yeah,
all that.
that's a caveat, right? Like tit for tat, as they say. But yeah, Matt, I'm looking forward for whatever you got going on over the next few weeks, because I know Congress just returned. Please, everyone, go to askapol.com and subscribe and support what Matt is doing. He's doing an amazing job, and I want to thank you for being my guest today. And I'll see you soon, man. I'll keep watching your stuff and covering everything I can.
Yes, sir, brother. Appreciate you. Appreciate all the support, everyone. Cheers.
Thank you very much.